Welcome back. You remember the case of Sara Sharif, the poor little girl who was beaten to death, tortured and beaten to death by her awful father and his equally awful partner. The poor little girl, I believe she was 11 years old when she met her maker. Now, the point is that the family court, in a series of hearings, made pretty bad decisions about this kid, and one of which was to give custody of Sara Sharif to her father. His name was Urfan Sharif, and her stepmother, Beinash Batool. They're both serving life now, quite rightly. Urfan Sharif had a big background of violence, and this was all referred to the judge in question. The judge in question at the family court was told that Sarah and her siblings were not adequately supervised, that they had unexplained injuries, and that social workers had to ask for the children to be taken into care. They said concerns about the family dating back to 2010, even before Sarah was born, have been a matter of record. So we weren't allowed to. So this judge who made this decision, that was a bad decision. I think we can say that. It was an appalling decision. It was a wrong decision. She effectively handed this poor little kid into the custody of her father, who went on to torture and kill her along with his partner. Now, we weren't allowed to know the name of this judge, nor were we allowed to know the name of two other family court judges who had made not quite such catastrophic decisions, but poor decisions in the history of this poor little kid, because a judge called Mr. Justice Williams didn't want them to be named in case they got a bad time from the virtual lynch mob, and he said that you couldn't really trust the media, the newspapers, to report this correctly. That was an abysmal decision. Several media outlets, including the Daily Mail and the BBC, to prove that organisations from all sides of the fence were equally outraged. This is a question of transparency. The public has a right to know. Justice must be seen to be done, not only be done. Now, they appealed, and Sir Geoffrey Voss, Master of the Rolls at the appeal court, found in favour of the media, saying the whole idea of anonymising the judge was, I have to say, misguided. So we now know that the two judges whose mistakes were not that bad, but bad, were Judge Peter Nathan and Judge Sally Williams. But Judge Alison Raeside is the one that handed custody of Sarah to this monster, to these two monsters. So we now know her name, quite rightly too. That was a bad mistake. So my question is, now what happens to her? Is she punished? I'm with, should have said, or with Andrew Eborn, barrister and broadcaster. He knows a little bit about this sort of thing, obviously. He's always in court. What happens, Andrew? Does she get punished? Does she get reprimanded? Does she get sacked? What happens to Alison Raeside for this abysmal decision?
Yeah, I'll tell you what happens. And you're absolutely right. It is absolutely appalling. The whole system failed Sara, and the dreadful circumstances and the evidence which has now come out about the appalling conditions, the abuse that she suffered. And also, as you rightly said, the three judges have now been named. Also, the rules have now changed about family courts, that we can report on what happens in the family courts, but you basically do that anonymously, so you don't mention the families. And I've always say that trust comes in on foot but leaves on horseback, and trust in the media and trust in judges and trust in the police and various other things is at an all-time low. One of the ways they were going to restore this trust is to have transparency, and as you rightly say, justice not just to be done but seen to be done, so people can try to understand why judges make what seem to be appalling decisions. And that's why they started doing things like sentencing remarks and so on and so forth. In this particular case, as the circumstances have have unfurled. Judge Alison Raeside, she sat on the earliest hearings involving Sara, the last one and the most hearings in between. Basically, the court said that they were involved with the family before she was even born, because the family, there were various reports and concerns about that. When she was only 6 days old, there was a hearing on the 17th of January 2013, and again they said about the real concerns. This was Surrey County Council that they had. What happens in these hearings, we've only been part of the media just picked up on what Surrey County Council said. They also had various experts who come in on the other side to say actually her best place would have been with the family. So what we need to look at is who else was responsible on those sort of basis.
But there was a lot of information that I would say, even if there was an opposing argument, that any decent judge would have said, no,
I have to agree with you. On the face of it, it is an appalling decision. What happens is judges have impunity.
So essentially what we're talking about, the essential question here is who judges the judges?
Yes.
And what you're saying is nobody does.
Well, I'll tell you what happens.
Nothing will happen to Alison Raeside for this abysmal decision.
The way that judges get judged is if they make a decision on law, it goes through the appeal courts and so on and so forth. If they behave in an inappropriate way, they have discipline and so on and so forth, but it doesn't affect the decision. So what happens is the starting point is judges are protected from the decisions that they make through impunity, and the argument for that is they're supposed to be independent and not worried about having writs sent to them for defamation.
I don't think they should be sued, but they should be worried about being reprimanded, being punished, being sacked.
Oh, yeah.
They should, like the rest of us have to be. You know, if I make an appalling mistake at work, you know, I'll probably get the tin tack. Why are these people immune from that?
I agree, absolutely. And what we need to look at is all of those circumstances, and this particular judge basically should be held to account, and there should be a process where we restore trust. And I've been advocating for a long time about making sure we restore trust in the judiciary as a result of it. And these sort of cases and this sort of evidence coming out, these appalling circumstances, just go to erode that trust even further. But you're right, the general position at the moment is that judges have impunity. And what happens is, but the humiliation, let me put this into context. Basically, they make a decision, you have a right to appeal, and it's humiliating for the judges to have an appeal going against them. But in terms of personal integrity,
that's Mr. Justice Williams,
but he was concerned.
By the way, he should be punished as well. That was an abysmal decision to actually anonymise the events in court.
And even the Master of the Rolls, as you rightly said, he said it was nonsense. You have to have transparency. We've been campaigning for this all along. But the reality is exactly that. So what's going to happen is we need to look. There are further questions to be asked. Why did the professionals recommend to the judge that she could be looked after still by her parents? And they don't get immunity. What happens is they have what's called a duty of care, and it's a tort. And what that means effectively is that if you breach that duty of care, then a right of action can ensue. And I think my personal view is that we absolutely need to look at this case, and it's tried to say never let it happen again, because that's said too often. It is a disgusting case, and it's only right and proper that this is unpacked in a full way.
Just generally speaking, I would suggest that this story illustrates that we're too reverential to judges, and if judges feared for their jobs like the rest of us do, they might be a little more cautious about making this kind of decision.
Well, I think to be fair, Kevin, I think the two things is, firstly, the judges themselves, 3 judges, didn't ask for anonymity. That was a mistake.
Two of them did. Alison didn't,
and she didn't.
To be fair, she didn't.
So she's the main one at the centre of this. She made most of the decisions. She didn't ask for anonymity. So the reality is that if she's held for account, absolutely, you then have to say, well, what evidence was presented to her on that basis?
Absolutely. Well, there you go. Who judges the judges? Let me know what you think.